Hi, I'm Keziah Gibbons. My pronouns are she and her. So this week, this week where I am has been raining a lot. I live in York, and we've just had rain all week. It's actually been there's been a pretty heavy storm that's hit a lot of Europe quite severely. We've got off fairly lightly here. We've been safe, but there's just been a lot of rain. And the other day, I like to cycle. I can't walk, but I can ride a bike, and I love to get out on my bike. It gives me so much joy. It's an act of freedom for me. I take great pleasure in it. And so the other day, I decided to go out on my bike. Now, when I go out on my bike, there's a couple of routes I take. There are very fortunately here we have some designated cycle routes. They run across the whole country actually, and they're something I'm keen to explore one day. But we have one that starts about a mile from my house, from where I live. So sometimes I go that way, or if I just want a short ride but pleasant, I go down by the river. I live very, very close to the river Ouse and on top of the river Foss. So it's really nice. It's really easy to go down to the river. So the other day I went out on my bike and I got down as far as the park where I normally get onto the river. And only as I was cycling into the park did it occur to me, it's been raining all week. And what the Ouse does, the river Ouse, when it's been raining, is the Ouse floods. So the park, the entire park where I'd normally get onto the path to cycle beside the river was underwater. And of course, the path was nowhere to be seen, just all this water flowing. So I thought, okay, I can't go for a bike ride down by the river then. What shall I do? I didn't particularly want to go cycling on the roads because the traffic's bad in York and the cycle lanes are sporadic. It's guaranteed to get your heart rate up if you're looking for cardiovascular exercise, cycling in that traffic. But I didn't want to do that day. But I realised I've been presented with an opportunity. Here was the water coming up to meet the earth. Here was a liminal space, and here was a space where I could sit under a tree at the water's edge and meditate. So that's what I did. And I sat there and it was really nice and peaceful actually. The rain had stopped, the sun had come out, so it's a beautiful day. There's all these big old trees around and the sun's coming down through the leaves. It's very beautiful. There's this kind of sunlight through leaves. I won't say warm, but certainly warm for the time of year. And I'm sitting here with my back against this tree, just watching the river flow by very, very fast. And as the river flows by, I start to watch this family of geese. And these geese, they're just floating down the river, and I think, oh no, those poor geese, they're being carried away. The flow of the river is so strong, they're being carried away. And I just watch them. They're pointing in one direction, but the river's carrying them in a different direction. And after a couple of minutes, I saw them swimming back up the river. And I realised how powerful they were, that here's this great big flood of river flowing quite fast. And here these geese are so powerful. And of course with geese, ducks, swans, it all happens under the surface. So although I can't see them making any effort, they're so powerful that they actually are able to paddle against the current and get up the river. And they came into the park where I was and sort of found a bit of shore, hung out on the shore for a bit, swam around in the shallows. So all of this inspired me to this week's spread. So here is the spread for the week ahead. So first we've got the rain. So this might be something for you this week that is going on in the background that you're not necessarily aware of or conscious of. You know it's happening, but it's not center in your attention. And yet it is something that is going to have an effect on you and what's around you. So that's the first position. The second position is the cycle ride. So that's what we might choose to do this week. It's what we might expect to do this week, what we might set out to do this week. The third position then is the river in flood. So this is what might make you change your course this week, what might be, I don't know about inevitable, but very powerful this week. So it might stop you in your tracks or ask you to change your plans. The fourth position is the meditation. So being able, when we are thrown those circumstances that are perhaps outside of our control, perhaps unexpected, perhaps expected, how can we approach them? How can we be in harmony with the circumstances around us and not only what we want or wish for? And the next two positions are the geese. So one is going with the flow, allowing yourself to be carried by events. And the other is deliberately using your power and your agency to intentionally go where you want to go. So those are our positions for this week's reading. And I'm reading with it's an oracle deck, the Oracle Deck of Bridges. It's by Janine Worthington, who also has the In-Between Tarot. And it's a wonderful oracle deck. It's my absolute favourite to work with. So I'll invite you to take a deep breath and just ask to receive what you need. And if there is anything that you've been working with or working through this week, then you might want to bring it to mind now, just asking for any insight that might be available to you. And then just opening to receiving what you need. Okay, so our first position then is the rain. So what might be going on in the background this week that you don't pay attention to, but that nevertheless is influencing what's going on for you? And we have the throat chakra here. You'll see this beautiful blue illustration here. So the throat chakra is about how we express in the world, how we communicate, how we listen, but also how we speak, how we express. So this tells me then that in the background this week, we're being influenced by communication. So every time you communicate, you might not be doing that consciously. And when we communicate, there are a couple of things going on. So any interaction, we have what's going on the surface. And then we have what's going on underneath. So on the surface, you might have something like checking in with a friend or loved one. How are you? But underneath that interaction, you also have the communication underneath that, which is, I'm thinking of you, I want to know that you're okay, and I'm thinking of you enough in this moment to send a communication to you, whether that's a text message or a call or going to see someone. So we're always communicating more than one thing. So this week it might just be worth noticing what we're communicating and how, and particularly what communications are going on in the background for us this week. So that's our first card. Our next card is the cycle ride. So what might we be setting out to do this week? What might what might our plans be this week? And we have nutrition. So you can see here this sort of very old style place, and in the centre of the table you've got an apple and the light shining through onto the apple. And of course, apples are good for you. We all know an apple a day keeps the doctor away. So the focus then, what you might be intending setting out to do this week might be about nutrition. I'm smiling to myself here because actually what I have in my diary to work with this week is nutrition. So I know this reading's for me as much as it is for anybody else, and that's the joy of these community readings, isn't it, that we all have messages in them. So you might be intending then, or getting some pleasure out of, or finding some purpose in your nutrition this week. So this can be about what you eat, of course, and how you nourish your body. And nutrition is really important. It can affect our strength, our health, our mood, our capabilities. We notice when we've been suffering with bad nutrition, whether it's not enough, too much, the wrong kinds of things. All these things do have an impact on us. So it is good to consider what we are putting into ourselves, taking into ourselves this week, but also on a much wider, broader scale, you know, as well as food. What else are we taking in? What are we feeding our minds? Are we watching the news all day long? Are we deciding to take in media that we have perhaps more control over? Are we feeding our minds? Are we feeding our hearts? Are we feeding our souls with all the good nutrition as well? So that's what we might be setting off on, what our plans might be for this week. And then the next position is the flood. So, you know, what might come up that might change your plans or make you rethink them, or give us a different circumstance to deal with. And what we've got here is thoughts, and that's really interesting. So we have a thought tree here, and it does have some words on it. I'll read them out to you. So we have thoughts right here at the base of the tree. In the trunk we have understanding, and then the branches are perception, attention, logic and cognition, which are all parts of our thoughts. And you see it's a beautiful tree as well. It's growing, it's flourishing. Really makes me think about that nutrition and that throat chakra as well. So looking at the throat chakra, because this is the rain that's contributing to the flood, all of those communications are contributing to our thoughts. So what are we communicating to ourselves and others, and what are we taking in? Part of that nutrition question as well. So what are we hearing, understanding, believing, and what are we expressing, what are we saying to ourselves and to the people around us? Because all of these things will influence our thoughts, and as we know, thoughts have a huge impact on our experience of life. So our thoughts then might be getting in our way, or seeming big or overwhelming, or like they're running too fast. But it's a great card to have here actually, because thoughts are something that we do have control over. We can put those flood barriers up. We can choose the direction in which the overflow is going to go. We can have an intelligent response to whatever circumstances arise. So it is actually a very empowering card. And then again with that nutrition, you know, if we are setting off on with a plan of nourishing ourselves physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, energetically, in all of the different ways, and we're stopped in our tracks by our thoughts, it's almost a good thing, because our thoughts are our own and we can change them. So I see perhaps something like affirmation work might help to keep us on track. And every time we get a thought, we can examine, you know, is it helpful? Is it supportive of our mission and our intention? If it is, that's great, amplify it. If it's not, then, you know, there are questions. Is it true? When is it not true? What are the, you know, is it mine? Is this my thought? Or is this something I've taken in from somewhere else? Again, looking at that throat chakra and that theme of communication. So it's a very empowering card to have here in the flood. Our next position then, meditation. How can we respond to circumstances when circumstances arise and start flowing through our spaces. And the card that we've got is detox. And you see this as a very beautiful picture. You see this, there's water flowing in this picture, and it's coming in through the head of this figure and then down out through the feet. So it reminds us that whatever we take in, we can also release as well. Anything can be useful for us for a small amount of time. So any thought, any emotion, any behaviour will be useful and will have a purpose for some time. But when it's time to release it, then the very important thing to do is remember to release that as well. And so with the card being detox, and again, we've had here, we've got this theme of communication and nutrition of our thoughts. There is space here to cut down on or cut out anything that's not nourishing us, any communication that's not purposeful or should we say perhaps intentional, any thoughts which are not nourishing us, which are not helping us to grow. We can let go of them. And I love the flow of water in here because it reminds us that energy is always flowing through us. Energy is always coming into us from source, and energy is always being released by us. So we can intentionally choose to release the energy that's not helpful for us this week. And these two positions I'm with the geese. The first one, going with the flow, so letting yourself be carried on, carried away with or floating on events this week. How might that be? And we've got music. This is one of my favourite cards in this deck. It's very beautiful. You can see these notes going from this piano through this sacred window into the awesome night sky. And let's face it, if we're going to get carried away by the flow of anything, why not music? So as a suggestion, I offer you, or as an invitation, I offer you an invitation to let yourself get carried away in music this week. Whether that means listening to something you really love, whether that means listening to something new or something really old that you haven't heard for years, whether you perhaps are someone who enjoys making music at any level, stomping around making a rhythm is making music, playing an instrument, singing is making music, dancing is a form of celebrating music. So if you're going to get carried away on anything this week, let it be music. Let the music carry you with it, because it's a very joyful thing, isn't it? And then finally, how might we use our intention? How might we move intentionally this week? And the card we've got is explore. So that's another invitation here, isn't it? You can see here's a person with a backpack and they're out in the wilds and they're sensing into where they're standing. They've got arms outstretched, they're sensing in with their feet to the ground they're standing on. So it is an invitation for you to explore. And that might mean going to new places, exploring new physical territory. It might mean exploring within what's within you. It might mean trying something new, stepping out of your comfort zone in some way. And you can do that. It might feel like you're swimming upstream, but you're absolutely capable of it.